Ever wondered how a single clue can unlock a decades-old mystery? Today, we're diving into one of the most riveting mysteries ever solved. After 43 long years, the case of Lesia Jackson has finally been closed. Stay tuned to uncover every twist and turn in this incredible journey to justice. From baffling crime scenes to unexpected breakthroughs, this story promises to keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't miss a second, because what you're about to hear will not only shock you, but also restore your faith in relentless perseverance. Setting the scene 43 years ago, we find ourselves in a small, tight-knit community where everyone knew each other by name. It was a time when technology was scarce, and the local diner was the heartbeat of social interaction. Kids played outside until the streetlights came on, and neighbors watched out for each other, creating a sense of security that, unfortunately, proved to be a fragile illusion for Lesia Jackson. The year was 1980, a period marked by a blend of cultural shifts and lingering traditional values. In this quaint town, the air was filled with a mix of optimism from the post-70s era and the beginnings of technological curiosity. People gathered around radios for their news and entertainment, and the Cold War still cast a shadow over American life. The economy was experiencing challenges, yet communities like this one remained resilient, relying on local businesses and farming as pillars of stability. Lesia's neighborhood was characterized by tree-lined streets, modest homes, and a sense of camaraderie. Families often left their doors unlocked, a testament to the trust that was prevalent among residents. School activities and church gatherings were the highlights of social calendars, and weekends were for family picnics in the park. It was in this seemingly idyllic setting that the unthinkable happened, shaking the community to its core and leaving a haunting void that would linger for decades. As we delve deeper into the mystery, we'll explore how this safe haven turned into a landscape of fear and confusion, and how the quest for answers persisted through the sands of time. The day Lesia Jackson disappeared began like any other. It was a warm afternoon in early June, the type that invited children to play outside and families to gather in their backyards. Lesia, a bright and spirited 12-year-old girl with a contagious smile that could light up a room, was last seen leaving her friend's house around 4 p.m. Dressed in her favorite blue shirt and jeans and holding a small backpack, she waved goodbye and began her short walk home. Her friends recall her being in high spirits, excited about the upcoming summer break. As she strolled down the familiar tree-lined street, her cheerful demeanor was a staple in this close-knit community. Lesia was supposed to meet her mother at home, but she never arrived. When dinner time came and there was still no sign of her, concern began to grow. Her mother called around, reaching out to neighbors and friends, thinking she might have lost track of time while playing. Panic set in as hours passed without any news. By nightfall, what started as a frantic search by family and friends escalated to a full-blown community effort. The local police were alerted, and officers started canvassing the neighborhood. Flyers with Lesia's smiling face were distributed, and her description was broadcast on local radio stations. 5 feet tall, short brown hair, wearing a blue shirt and jeans. Residents gathered, forming search parties that combed through parks, alleys, and nearby woods. The tight-knit community, now gripped with fear and disbelief, worked tirelessly into the night. Her friends were interviewed, trying to piece together any clues from their last interaction. The initial reaction of Lesia's family was a heartbreaking mix of hope and dread. Her parents remained by the phone, praying for any snippet of news. Despite their worst fears, they clung to the hope that Lesia would walk through the door at any moment, safe and sound. As dawn broke with still no sign of Lesia, the reality began to settle in that something terrible had happened. The authorities intensified their efforts, but leads were scarce. The tranquil town that once epitomized safety and trust was now enveloped in an unsettling silence, broken only by the whispers of neighbors and the sobs of a family desperate for answers. This was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey, one that would span over 4 decades before the truth finally emerged. The immediate investigation was launched with an urgency that reflected the community's deep-rooted concern for Lesia Jackson's safety. The local police department mobilized all available resources, conducting door-to-door inquiries and setting up a command center to coordinate the search efforts. Officers interviewed Lesia's friends, family members, and neighbors, trying to piece together her last known movements. The first 48 hours are crucial in any missing person case, and the authorities were determined to leave no stone unturned. Search efforts were extensive and methodical. Volunteers from the community, along with trained search and rescue teams, scoured the surrounding areas. They combed through dense woods, checked abandoned buildings, and searched nearby waterways. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging technology scanned the landscape from above, hoping to spot any signs of Lesia. The police set up roadblocks, stopping drivers and handing out flyers with Lesia's picture and description, appealing to the public for any information. Early leads began to trickle in, though many proved to be dead ends. A few eyewitnesses reported seeing a young girl matching Lesia's description, walking along the main road that led out of town. Another person mentioned spotting a suspicious vehicle parked near the woods where search teams were focusing their efforts. Detectives followed up on each tip meticulously, but the clues were either too vague or led nowhere definitive. The investigation took a turn when officers found a small blue hair clip near the wooded area, similar to the one Lesia often wore. This discovery renewed hope and added a crucial piece to the puzzle. Forensic experts were called in to analyze the hair clip, looking for any DNA evidence that could provide a lead. They also examined Lesia's backpack, found discarded by the side of the road, which contained her school notebooks and a small toy. These items were carefully bagged and sent to the lab for further examination. As the days turned into weeks, the initial flurry of activity began to slow, but the determination of the investigators remained steadfast. They set up a tip line, following up on any new information, no matter how small. They re-interviewed key witnesses, reviewed surveillance footage from local businesses, and even consulted with behavioral profilers to understand the possible motivations behind Lesia's disappearance. Despite their relentless efforts, the investigation hit a wall. Leads grew cold, and no new evidence surfaced. The once vibrant command center became quieter, and the community's initial hope began to wane. But the police never gave up on Lesia. The case was kept open, and detectives continued to work on it whenever new information emerged. They held on to the hope that someday, somehow, they would find the answers they sought and bring Lesia home. Public reaction and media coverage was swift and intense following Lesia Jackson's disappearance. The close-knit community, already shaken by the sudden vanishing of one of its most beloved members, immediately rallied together. Candlelight vigils were held, with neighbors and friends gathering to pray for Lesia's safe return. The local church offered its hall for organizing search efforts and community meetings, providing a space where people could share information and support each other. The media quickly picked up the story, recognizing the widespread interest and urgency surrounding the case. Local news stations broadcast continuous updates, flashing Lesia's picture across TV screens with the headline, "Missing, Lesia Jackson, age 12. Reporters interviewed her distraught parents, who made emotional pleas for her safe return. The family's front yard became a hub for media vans and cameras, each capturing the raw pain and hope etched on the faces of those who loved Lesia. Newspaper clippings from the time show front-page headlines such as "Little Girl Lost" and "Town Grips in Fear." Articles detailed every known aspect of the case, from the timeline of her last known movements to the community's search efforts. Editors called for vigilance, urging readers to report any suspicious activity and keep an eye out for the missing girl. Photographs of search parties, candlelight vigils, and interviews with friends and neighbors filled the pages, painting a vivid picture of a town united in its quest to find Lesia. TV news coverage extended beyond local stations, catching the attention of regional and even national platforms. Reporters from larger networks descended upon the small town, broadcasting live from the scene and interviewing anyone who might have seen or heard something. This increased exposure brought in a flood of tips from viewers across the country, though many were false leads that still had to be meticulously followed up by the police. Interviews with those who remember the case reveal a community forever changed by the event. Elderly residents recall how fear permeated daily life, leading people to lock their doors and keep their children closer than ever. Parents would not let their kids out of sight, and gatherings became somber affairs, dominated by discussions about Lesia's fate. Former classmates of Lesia, now adults, still remember the impact of her disappearance on their childhood. They speak of the innocent times before the incident and how overnight their perception of safety and trust was shattered. Some recount seeing their own parents join the search parties, armed with flashlights and determination, combing through the woods long after the official efforts had tapered off. The media's relentless attention put pressure on the authorities to keep the investigation active, even as leads grew cold. Journalists often revisited the case on anniversaries, keeping Lesia's story in the public eye and reminding everyone that a resolution was still needed. These reappearances in the media served as a lifeline for a community grappling with unanswered questions and a family clinging to hope amidst their despair. Public reaction and media coverage played a crucial role in keeping Lesia Jackson's case from fading into obscurity. They provided a platform for remembrance and advocacy, ensuring that her story continued to resonate with both the local community and beyond. This unwavering attention laid the groundwork for the eventual breakthrough, some 4 decades later, when the truth about Lesia's fate finally came to light. The family's perspective brings a deeply personal and emotional dimension to the case of Lesia Jackson. From the moment Lesia went missing, her family's world turned upside down. Her mother, who had always been a pillar of strength, was suddenly thrust into a nightmare. She recalls the agony of that first night, sitting by the phone, every ring filling her with a fleeting hope that quickly turned to despair when it wasn't Lesia on the other end. Her father, a stoic man by nature, found himself breaking down in private moments, away from the prying eyes of the community that looked to him for composure. They clung to each other and their faith, drawing strength from the community's support, but also feeling an unbearable isolation that comes from such a personal loss. Lesia's siblings, who looked up to her as a role model, were thrust into an incomprehensible situation. They struggled to understand why their sister had been taken away from them and found solace in each other's company, often staying up late at night to share memories of Lesia, recounting her laughter and her dreams for the future. Over the years, they channeled their grief into advocacy, tirelessly campaigning to keep Lesia's case in the public eye. They distributed flyers, appeared on television, and even participated in public events aimed at raising awareness for missing children. Interviews with the family over the years reveal the depth of their pain and the unwavering hope that kept them going. Lesia's mother once shared in an emotional appearance on a morning news show, "Not a day goes by that I don't think of her, wondering if she's out there somewhere, needing us." Her father added, "We've never stopped looking for answers. We owe it to Lesia to find out what happened to her." Friends of the family speak of their incredible resilience and the lengths they went to keep the investigation alive. They organized annual memorials and partnered with organizations dedicated to locating missing children. Despite the years passing, the Jacksons refused to let Lesia's memory fade, ensuring her story remained a constant presence in the community and beyond. One particularly poignant moment came during a candlelight vigil held on the 20th anniversary of Lesia's disappearance. Her mother stood before a crowd of supporters, her voice trembling yet resolute. Lesia would have been 32 today. We think about all the milestones she missed, the birthdays, the graduations, but we also hold on to the belief that justice will prevail. As the years turned into decades, the family faced immense challenges in coping with their loss. Therapy sessions, support groups, and leaning on their faith helped them navigate the emotional turmoil. They kept a room in their home just as Lesia left it, a shrine to her memory, filled with her favorite toys, books, and pictures. This space became both a sanctuary and a painful reminder of their missing daughter. In recent interviews following the resolution of the case, the family expressed a mixture of relief and sorrow. Lesia's mother, reflecting on the breakthrough, said, "We are grateful to finally have answers, but the pain of losing her never goes away. Our lives were shattered, and we've spent 43 years piecing them back together." Her father added, "Knowing what happened brings some closure, but it doesn't heal the wound. We missed out on so much with Lesia, but we hope her story will help others and bring awareness to the plight of missing children." Their enduring hope, combined with the relentless pursuit of truth, played a crucial role in keeping the investigation active. Through their tears and tribulations, the Jacksons' unwavering love and dedication to Lesia ensured that her case was never forgotten, ultimately contributing to the breakthrough that solved one of the oldest cold cases and finally brought justice for Lesia Jackson. The first suspect in the spotlight was Mr. Thompson, a reclusive neighbor who lived just a few houses down from the Jackson family. Known for his eccentric behavior and a tendency to keep to himself, Thompson quickly became a person of interest when eyewitnesses recalled seeing him in the vicinity where Lesia was last seen. His background revealed a troubled history, including a previous conviction for petty theft and an alleged incident involving inappropriate behavior towards children. Despite this, he had strong alibis at the time of Lesia's disappearance, as he was seen by multiple neighbors at a local store around the crucial hours. This left investigators split, with some pushing for deeper scrutiny, while others felt his alibi was rock solid. Next, there was Cindy Hart, Lesia's babysitter, who had been the last person to see her before she vanished. Cindy was a popular high school senior, known for her responsible demeanor and close relationship with the Jackson family. However, her initial statements to the police contained inconsistencies, sparking suspicion. Cindy claimed Lesia left her house in a cheerful mood, but a few classmates mentioned Cindy appeared unusually anxious that evening. Additionally, one of her friends recalled Cindy mentioning she felt guilty about something, though she never elaborated. Despite thorough interrogations and even passing a polygraph test, the lack of concrete evidence meant Cindy remained a suspect without substantial leads. Then there was Mr. Donovan, a local handyman with a reputation for being temperamental. Donovan had done work on the Jacksons' house shortly before Lesia went missing, which naturally placed him under police scrutiny. His background check revealed a violent altercation from his past, where he had been charged but later acquitted due to insufficient evidence. Donovan's whereabouts during the time of Lesia's disappearance were murky, with no solid alibi and a few neighbors recalling seeing his van near the woods that were part of the search area. When questioned, Donovan exhibited nervous behavior and was unable to provide a clear timeline of his activities, further raising suspicions. However, forensic examination of his van and properties turned up no evidence linking him directly to Lesia's case, leaving authorities in a quandary. Finally, there was the enigmatic figure of Mr. Harris, an acquaintance of Lesia's family who often volunteered at community events. Harris had a seemingly impeccable reputation, but a deeper dive into his history revealed he had been dismissed from a previous job under mysterious circumstances involving allegations of misconduct. Witnesses placed Harris near the park where Lesia was known to play, and his friendly nature with the children of the community put him under the investigative lens. Adding to the suspicion, Harris was among the first to join the search efforts, displaying an eager yet strangely detached demeanor. While he maintained a cooperative stance throughout the investigation, providing a strong alibi corroborated by his colleagues, the lingering doubts about his past kept him on the suspect list. Each of these individuals presented a puzzling mix of potential guilt and plausible innocence, weaving a complex web of leads and dead ends for the investigators to untangle. The lack of definitive evidence against any single suspect turned the case into a frustrating labyrinth, where every step forward seemed to be met with another wall of uncertainty. As the years passed and memories faded, the suspects either moved away, passed on, or lived under the shadow of unproven accusations, each one a piece in the unsolved jigsaw puzzle that was Lesia Jackson's case. The challenges faced by law enforcement in the case of Lesia Jackson were immense and multifaceted, reflecting the technological limitations and procedural constraints of the early 1980s. One of the most significant hurdles was the lack of advanced forensic technology that we take for granted today. DNA analysis, which has become a cornerstone of modern criminal investigations, was in its infancy and not widely used. This meant that crucial physical evidence, such as the hairclip and backpack found during the search, could not be analyzed with the precision available to today's investigators. The absence of sophisticated databases to cross-reference fingerprints or other forensic markers further compounded the difficulty in identifying potential suspects or linking them to the crime scene. In addition to the forensic limitations, the communication infrastructure was rudimentary by modern standards. Information sharing between different police departments and agencies was often slow and fragmented. Without the benefit of instant digital communication, much of the coordination had to be done via telephone calls and physical paperwork, which slowed the investigative process considerably. The lack of centralized databases for missing persons or criminal records meant that detectives had to rely heavily on local knowledge and manually cross-referencing records, a time-consuming and error-prone process. The investigative techniques of the time were also less evolved in terms of psychological profiling and understanding criminal behavior. Behavioral analysis units and criminal profilers, which are now integral to solving complex cases, were in their developmental stages. This meant that understanding the potential motivations and patterns of the perpetrator was more of an art than a science, relying heavily on the experience and intuition of the detectives working the case. Compounding these technological and procedural issues were the societal attitudes and norms of the time. The close-knit community, while supportive in many ways, also presented challenges. There was a pervasive belief that such heinous acts could not be committed by someone within their ranks, leading to an initial reluctance to suspect local individuals or delve too deeply into their private lives. This community trust, while generally an asset, may have inadvertently shielded suspects from early scrutiny. The sheer emotional weight of the case also took its toll on the law enforcement officers involved. The disappearance of a young girl affected them deeply, knowing that every moment lost could mean another step further from finding Lesia alive. The constant pressure from the media and the public amplified this strain. Officers had to maintain their professionalism and composure while dealing with the intense scrutiny and emotional pleas from the Jackson family and the community. In summary, the law enforcement challenges in the Lesia Jackson case were numerous and significant. The technological limitations of the early 1980s, coupled with procedural inefficiencies and societal attitudes, created a daunting landscape for detectives. Yet, despite these obstacles, they persevered, driven by a commitment to finding the truth and bringing closure to a devastated family. The eventual resolution of the case, decades later, stands as a testament to their unwavering determination and the advances in technology and investigative techniques that ultimately provided the answers long sought after. The breakthroughs in forensic science over the ensuing decades revolutionized the way criminal investigations are conducted, ultimately playing a pivotal role in solving cold cases like that of Lesia Jackson. One of the most transformative advancements was the advent and widespread adoption of DNA analysis. Unlike in the 1980s, where DNA technology was either rudimentary or unavailable, the development of polymerase chain reaction (PCR) techniques in the late 1980s and early 1990s allowed for the amplification and analysis of minute biological samples. This breakthrough enabled investigators to obtain genetic profiles from even the smallest fragments of evidence, providing leads that were previously impossible to uncover. The significance of DNA analysis cannot be overstated. It introduced a level of precision and definitiveness to forensic science that transformed the landscape of criminal investigations. Cold cases, which had gone unsolved for years, began to see new life as evidence once deemed inconclusive could now be re-examined with these powerful new tools. The ability to create DNA profiles from old samples meant that many previously stymied investigations could be reopened, bringing new hope to families and communities seeking justice. In Lesia Jackson's case, The physical evidence collected during the initial investigation, including her backpack and the blue hair clip, was re-evaluated using modern DNA techniques. Laboratories equipped with state-of-the-art forensic technology were able to extract genetic material from these items, material that had remained untouched and unseen by the naked eye for decades. This newfound evidence was cross-referenced with national DNA databases, which had been significantly expanded and refined over the years. The creation of these databases, such as CODIS in the United States, allowed for the matching of DNA profiles against a vast pool of samples from known offenders, arrestees, and other crime scenes. These databases became invaluable resources for connecting dots that had previously been irremediably disjointed. Alongside DNA technology, other forensic advancements also contributed to the resolution of long-standing mysteries. Fingerprint analysis became computerized, allowing for faster and more accurate matching through systems like AFIS, the Automated Fingerprint Identification System. Digital imaging and enhancements further improved the ability to analyze and compare prints, making it possible to identify suspects with greater certainty. Additionally, the evolution of forensic toxicology and trace evidence analysis provided more detailed insights into substances and materials found at crime scenes, revealing critical information about the circumstances surrounding a crime. The integration of geographic information systems, GIS, and advanced mapping technologies also altered the investigative approach. GIS allowed investigators to analyze spatial data and identify patterns or clusters related to criminal activities. In cases like Lesia's, mapping the area of her disappearance and subsequent evidence locations helped to establish potential routes, suspect movements, and areas of interest that may have been overlooked initially. Behavioral analysis and criminal profiling had also matured into sophisticated methodologies by the time Lesia's case was re-examined. These techniques, refined by behavioral science experts, provided deeper psychological insights into the patterns and motives of offenders. By combining these insights with the new forensic evidence, investigators could better understand the nature of the perpetrator, narrowing their focus and identifying viable suspects with a higher degree of accuracy. The landscape of criminal investigations had indeed been dramatically altered. The tireless work of scientists and investigators who developed and honed these technologies and methods paved the way for resolving cases that had long languished in the annals of unsolved mysteries. For Lesia Jackson and her family, these advancements meant that the truth, once hidden in the shadows of time and technological limitations, could finally come to light. The breakthrough not only provided answers, but also symbolized the relentless human pursuit of justice and the incredible potential of scientific progress in illuminating the darkest of mysteries. The case officially went cold after several months of exhaustive searching, yielded no new leads. The bustling activity and hopeful energy that initially drove the investigation slowly dwindled as tip lines grew silent and every promising clue led to a dead end. The community, which had poured so much effort into finding Lesia, began to face the harsh reality that their beloved neighbor might never be found. Law enforcement, despite their relentless dedication, had to confront the limitations of their tools and techniques at the time. As days turned into months and then years, the investigation was gradually scaled back. Resources were reallocated, and the once bustling command center was disassembled. Lesia's file was moved to the cold case division, a chilling reminder of how elusive the truth can be. Despite the procedural shift, her picture remained on the bulletin board, a silent testament to the hope that someday, somehow, they would have the breakthrough they needed. The emotional impact on the community was profound. A pervasive sense of loss and fear settled over the town. Parents became more protective, and the carefree days of children playing freely outside were replaced by watchful eyes and earlier curfews. Lesia's disappearance had shattered the illusion of safety. The town's annual events, once filled with joy, now had an underlying tension as everyone was reminded of the void Lesia left behind. The Jackson family bore the heaviest burden. Their lives were irrevocably changed, marked by a constant ache of not knowing. They transformed their pain into advocacy, continually pushing for the case to remain in the public eye. But behind closed doors, they faced an ordeal that time could not ease. Law enforcement officers who had worked tirelessly on the case also struggled with its unresolved status. The sense of personal failure weighed heavily on their shoulders, knowing that a young girl's life had been stolen and the assailant remained free. Many of these officers dedicated their careers to serving justice and protecting their community, and this case became a haunting reminder of the limits of their reach. They saw the pain in the eyes of Lesia's family and felt a deep connection to the case. It wasn't just another file. It was a personal mission that stayed with them throughout their careers. The case remained unsolved for so long due to several factors. The lack of advanced forensic technology at the time meant that crucial evidence couldn't be analyzed effectively. DNA testing, which would later become a game changer in forensic science, was not yet available. Moreover, the initial investigation, though thorough by the standards of the time, was hampered by the limitations of communication and data sharing systems between police departments. As years passed, memories faded and potential witnesses moved away or passed on, further complicating efforts to gather fresh leads. Additionally, the psychological toll on those involved often led to burnout and the need to prioritize new cases, leaving unsolved ones to gather dust. However, the determination of both the community and law enforcement to find answers never truly waned. They kept hope alive through yearly memorials and media reminders, ensuring that Lesia Jackson's story remained a part of the town's collective conscience. This persistent dedication laid the groundwork for the eventual advancements in forensic science and the relentless pursuit of justice that would, years later, finally bring closure to one of the oldest cold cases in the region. The renewed spark in the Lesia Jackson case came during the 30th anniversary of her disappearance, a time when the community gathered once more to honor her memory. It was a solemn event, marked by speeches from local leaders, heartfelt prayers, and the lighting of candles that illuminated the night sky. Among the attendees was a young detective named Emma Reynolds, newly transferred to the Cold Case Division. Emma had always been driven by a passion for justice, and the unresolved case of Lesia Jackson tugged at her heartstrings. As she listened to the emotional words of Lesia's family and saw the unwavering hope in their eyes, she felt a deep, personal commitment to give the case another look. The media played a significant role as well. A local news station decided to run a special feature on the unsolved mystery, airing old footage, interviews, and a poignant retrospective on the impact of Lesia's disappearance. The segment struck a chord with the viewers, reigniting public interest and leading to a flood of calls and emails to the police tip line. People shared memories, offered new information, and expressed a renewed determination to help solve the case. These new leads, although many were still vague, provided a fresh perspective and rekindled the community's involvement. Detective Reynolds, inspired by the outpouring of support and driven by a relentless pursuit of the truth, dived into the old evidence with a fresh pair of eyes. She began by meticulously reviewing every piece of physical evidence, re-examining witness statements, and scrutinizing the investigation reports from decades ago. With advancements in forensic technology at her disposal, what had once been an impenetrable wall now showed potential for breakthroughs. Emma sent the blue hairclip and Lesia's backpack to a state-of-the-art forensic lab, hoping that new DNA analysis techniques could extract information that had been missed before. The re-examination of forensic evidence was complemented by the detectives' interviews with original investigators, witnesses, and even past suspects. Emma's approach was thorough and empathetic, seeking to uncover details that might have been overlooked or forgotten. Her dedication extended beyond the office. She often walked the paths Lesia might have taken, trying to understand the environment and circumstances of that fateful day. Detective Reynolds also leveraged modern technology, using digital databases to cross-reference new DNA findings and re-interviewing individuals who had moved away, using social media to locate them. Emma's relentless efforts began to bear fruit. One of the new DNA tests revealed a partial match to a distant relative in a national database, providing a lead that had never been possible before. This clue, combined with painstakingly gathered historical data, began to form a picture that guided Detective Reynolds closer to the truth. The reinvigorated investigation also unearthed new, previously dormant witnesses, whose recollections, though faded, added crucial context to the timeline of events. The community's response continued to be overwhelming. Local businesses pledged funds to support the investigation, and volunteers organized events to keep the case in the public eye. Social media campaigns spread Lesia's story wider than ever, reaching a new generation who had not been born when she disappeared. The collective effort and modern tools gave the case new life, and the possibility of solving one of the oldest cold cases seemed within reach. Key evidence revisited the renewed investigation into Lesia Jackson's tragic disappearance gained momentum as key evidence from the original case was meticulously re-examined using advanced forensic technology. This pivotal moment in the investigation began with the reanalysis of Lesia's backpack. A once overlooked item, the backpack contained potential clues that modern science could now unlock. Detective Emma Reynolds sent the backpack to a cutting-edge forensic lab, where experts employed techniques unimaginable during the initial investigation. Swab samples were taken from both the interior and exterior of the backpack, targeting minute biological traces that might have remained undetected by previous technologies. DNA extraction techniques, now more sensitive than ever, yielded minute genetic material that had lain dormant for decades. These newly discovered DNA fragments were cross-checked against national databases, leading to a partial match with a distant relative, an unexpected breakthrough that reignited hope. Equally critical was the re-examination of the small blue hairclip found near the wooded area. This hairclip, a beloved accessory often worn by Lesia, was subjected to rigorous DNA testing. The lab's advanced sequencing technology identified a mixed DNA profile, including both Lesia's DNA and an unknown male profile. This discovery marked a significant lead, providing a new focal point for the investigation. Detective Reynolds followed this lead diligently, using the DNA profile to narrow down potential suspects and re-interview individuals connected to the case. Another crucial piece of evidence was an old photograph that surfaced during the renewed investigation. The photograph, taken by a local resident the day Lesia went missing, showed a blurry image of a vehicle parked near the search area. Modern digital enhancement techniques sharpened the image, revealing a distinctive license plate number. This led to the identification of the vehicle's owner, a previously overlooked individual who became a person of interest. Additionally, soil samples collected from Lesia's shoes were reanalyzed with geoforensic techniques. The lab compared the mineral composition of the soil against various locations around the town, identifying an exact match with a remote area previously missed during initial searches. This new information directed search teams to revisit the location, uncovering artifacts and disturbed ground that provided further context to Lesia's final moments. The culmination of these advanced forensic analyses, combined with Detective Reynolds' unwavering commitment, pieced together fragments of evidence that had long been shrouded in mystery. The perseverance of the investigators, fueled by the latest technological advancements, brought clarity to the once impenetrable enigma of Lesia Jackson's case, setting the stage for the ultimate revelation of the truth. The DNA breakthrough in the Lesia Jackson case was nothing short of remarkable, a testament to the power of modern forensic science. The key piece of DNA evidence that ultimately cracked the case wide open came from the blue hair clip found near the wooded area shortly after Lesia's disappearance. This hair clip, an item so intimately associated with Lesia, held within it the silent testimony of the events that had transpired. When Detective Emma Reynolds sent the hair clip to the forensic lab, the experts employed the most advanced DNA sequencing techniques available. They meticulously extracted minute biological samples from the hair clip surfaces, targeting any residual genetic material. The DNA sequenced from the hair clip revealed a mixed profile. It contained Lesia's DNA as well as an unknown male's DNA. This combination was the first significant clue, indicating a potential direct connection to her abductor. The next step involved cross-referencing the male DNA profile against national databases, such as CODIS. This computerized database had grown exponentially over the years, housing millions of DNA profiles from convicted offenders, arrestees, and crime scenes. The painstaking search through these databases led to a match. The unknown male DNA from the hair clip matched a profile in the system. It belonged to a man named Robert Harris, who had a prior record for minor offenses, but was never linked to any major crimes. Robert Harris had lived in the same community as Lesia at the time of her disappearance, and was known to volunteer at local events, including those where Lesia and her friends often played. The re-interviewing of witnesses and acquaintances from that period revealed that Harris had always seemed friendly, but there were now recollections of his unusually eager involvement in the search efforts for Lesia. This retrospective suspicion, combined with the DNA evidence, painted a chilling picture. Harris was brought in for questioning. As DNA evidence doesn't lie, the investigators confronted him with the match. Under the weight of irrefutable evidence and extensive questioning, Harris eventually broke down and confessed. He detailed how he had seen Lesia walking home that fateful day and had lured her into his vehicle by offering her a ride. The investigation revealed further disturbing details, but it was the DNA match that had been the linchpin in unraveling the truth. The breakthrough didn't just bring the long-awaited answers to light. It also revealed the persistent spirit of the investigators who had never given up. The tireless efforts of Detective Reynolds and her team, combined with the undeniable power of DNA technology, had finally solved the mystery that had haunted the community for 43 years. The resolution of Lesia Jackson's case brought a bittersweet closure. Justice had been served, but it also reopened wounds that had never fully healed. The breakthrough stands as a stark reminder of the profound impact of scientific advancements in the relentless pursuit of truth and justice. The suspect revealed through DNA evidence was Robert Harris. Robert had always been a familiar yet unassuming figure in the community. Born and raised in the same small town as Lesia, he had been known for his friendly demeanor and willingness to lend a hand at community events. In the years following Lesia's disappearance, Harris managed to integrate himself seamlessly into the fabric of the town, maintaining a low profile yet staying involved enough to avoid suspicion. Over the past 43 years, Robert Harris lived what many would consider an ordinary life. He worked various jobs, often in manual labor or maintenance roles, never staying long enough in one position to draw much attention. Neighbors described him as polite, but somewhat reserved, someone who kept to himself, but was always ready with a wave or a nod. Despite this outward normalcy, there were subtle inconsistencies in his behavior that only became clear in hindsight. Harris had no family of his own, which he attributed to personal choice, preferring the solitary life due to past relationships that, as he put it, didn't work out. His connection to Lesia's case was not immediately apparent to many. He had volunteered at local events, including those where children like Lesia would gather, which initially seemed benign. However, the retrospective analysis by Detective Reynolds and her team revealed a pattern of behavior that suggested more sinister intentions. Interviews with older community members unearthed vague recollections of Harris showing a bit too much interest in the children at these events, though nothing concrete enough to raise alarms at the time. What was shocking to the town was how Harris managed to evade suspicion all these years. Having lived among them, participating in the same search efforts, and expressing the same sympathies, he had skillfully masked his true nature. His minor offenses and brushes with the law never hinted at the gravity of his crime, making the DNA match all the more startling. The DNA evidence found on Lesia's blue hair clip linked him directly to her, stripping away the facade he had maintained for decades. Robert Harris's life over those 43 years was a disturbing blend of normalcy and hidden guilt. He moved from job to job, town to town, avoiding deep connections and close relationships that might unravel his carefully constructed persona. He attended community events, played the role of a concerned neighbor, and managed to keep the darkest parts of his life buried deep within. His eventual capture and confession brought a mix of emotions to the community: relief that justice had been served, but also a deep sense of betrayal and disbelief that such a person had lived among them for so long. The revelation of Robert Harris as Lesia's abductor was a powerful reminder of the hidden depths people can harbor, and the relentless pursuit of truth that finally brings such secrets to light. The arrest of Robert Harris was a dramatic and highly coordinated operation, reflecting the gravity and sensitivity of finally apprehending the suspect in one of the oldest cold cases in the region. Upon confirming the DNA match, Detective Emma Reynolds and her team meticulously planned the arrest to ensure it was carried out without any possibility of Harris evading justice. They collaborated with local law enforcement and SWAT units to prepare for every possible scenario. On an early morning, while the town was still waking up, officers surrounded Robert Harris's modest home. The quiet street was soon filled with the low hum of police radios and the sounds of officers positioning themselves. A commanding voice called out over a loudspeaker, instructing Harris to come out with his hands up. The tension was palpable as the seconds stretched into minutes. Inside, Robert Harris, who had lived with this dark secret for 43 years, realized his time had finally run out. Footage from the arrest shows Harris cautiously stepping out of his house, his face a mix of resignation and fear. He was immediately taken into custody, handcuffed, and read his rights. The camera captures the scene as neighbors peeked from behind curtains and doorways, shock and disbelief evident in their expressions. The community that had known him as a quiet, helpful neighbor now saw the sinister truth unveiled. Harris was transported to the local police station, where he was booked and processed. The charges brought against Robert Harris were extensive and severe, reflecting the heinous nature of his crime. He was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and unlawful restraint, among other related offenses. Each charge was meticulously detailed, with the prosecution team prepared to build a case that ensured Harris would face the full extent of the law. During the press conference that followed, Detective Emma Reynolds stood before a sea of cameras and microphones, outlining the breakthrough in the case and the charges against Harris. She spoke with a mix of relief and determination, emphasizing the significance of the DNA evidence and the tireless efforts of all those involved over the decades. The media coverage was intense, with images of Harris being led away in handcuffs broadcasted nationally. The community, although stunned, expressed a collective sigh of relief. The arrest of Robert Harris marked the end of a long and painful chapter, but also the beginning of a new phase, one of accountability and justice for Lesia Jackson. The court proceedings in the case against Robert Harris were a series of intense and emotionally charged moments that brought the community, Lesia Jackson's family, and law enforcement face to face with a pursuit for justice that had been 4 decades in the making. The atmosphere in the courtroom was heavy, filled with a sense of anticipation and the weight of long-held grief. Reporters and locals alike packed the gallery, eager to witness the unfolding of a historic trial. The prosecution, led by an experienced district attorney, opened with a powerful statement, painting a vivid portrait of the day Lesia Jackson disappeared and the heartbreaking years that followed for her family and the community. They laid out the key evidence, highlighting the DNA match that conclusively linked Robert Harris to the crime. The district attorney emphasized the meticulous work of Detective Emma Reynolds and the breakthrough in forensic science that had finally cracked the case. Witness testimonies were both compelling and heart-wrenching. Lesia's mother took the stand first, her voice trembling but resolute as she recounted the day her daughter vanished and the endless nights spent in anguish. The jury listened intently as she described the toll the disappearance had taken on their family, their lives forever marked by the void left by Lesia. Her testimony was followed by that of Detective Reynolds, who detailed the renewed investigation, the forensic analysis, and the critical role of new DNA technology. She spoke with a calm authority, explaining how the evidence led them to Harris and describing the moment of his arrest, Her testimony was a crucial anchor for the prosecution's case, underscoring the scientific certainty of the DNA match. Other key witnesses included former neighbors and community members who shared their interactions with Harris over the years. They spoke of their shock and betrayal upon learning of his arrest, providing character testimonies that painted Harris as a man who had deceptively woven himself into the fabric of their tight-knit community. Some recalled moments of unease or odd behavior that, in retrospect, seemed to hint at his darker nature. The defense, in stark contrast, sought to undermine the prosecution's case by casting doubt on the integrity of the DNA evidence and questioning the reliability of memories and testimonies decades after the fact. They argued that the prolonged time lapse could have led to contamination or misinterpretation of the forensic results. They also attempted to present Harris as a man living a quiet, unassuming life, insinuating that he had been wrongly accused based on circumstantial evidence. However, the defense faced an uphill battle against the sheer weight of the DNA evidence and the emotional testimonies that resonated deeply with the jury and spectators. The prosecution meticulously refuted each point raised by the defense, reaffirming the robustness of the forensic analysis and the thoroughness of the investigation led by Detective Reynolds. The climax of the trial came when Harris himself took the stand. Under cross-examination, the calm facade he had maintained during the early stages of the trial began to crack. Faced with the irrefutable DNA evidence and the systematic dismantling of his defense's arguments, Harris struggled to maintain his composure. His evasive answers and inconsistent statements further solidified the jury's perception of his guilt. Throughout the trial, the reactions from the public and the courtroom were palpable. Gasps and murmurs filled the room during particularly revealing moments, and tears were shed as Lesia's family shared their devastating loss. Outside the courthouse, supporters gathered with signs and flowers, standing vigil in solidarity with the Jackson family. The media coverage was relentless, capturing every pivotal moment and broadcasting it to a nation that had followed the case with bated breath. The jury deliberated for several days, weighing the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution against the defense's attempts to sow doubt. When they finally returned with a verdict, the courtroom fell silent. The foreperson stood and, with a voice clear and resolute, declared Robert Harris guilty on all counts. The reaction in the courtroom was immediate. Lesia's family embraced, their faces etched with a mixture of relief, sorrow, and the bittersweet sense of justice finally served. The public, too, felt a sense of closure, knowing that after 43 long years, the man responsible for Lesia Jackson's disappearance would finally be held accountable. The sentencing phase followed soon after, where the judge, acknowledging the profound impact of Harris's actions on the community and the devastating loss suffered by the Jackson family, handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The court's decision was met with a solemn nod from Lesia's parents, a recognition that while nothing could bring their daughter back, the relentless pursuit of justice had prevailed. The jury held their breath as the foreperson stood, the room so silent you could hear the subtle creak of the wooden floor beneath her. We find the defendant, Robert Harris, guilty on all counts. The words hung in the air, a mixture of relief and sorrow washing over the courtroom. Lesia's mother clutched her husband's hand, tears streaming down her face, a bittersweet culmination of 43 years of anguish. The judge, a figure of stern resolve, addressed the court. Robert Harris, You have been found guilty of the heinous crimes committed against Lesia Jackson. Your actions have caused unimaginable pain and suffering to her family and this community. It is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gavel echoed through the room, a final punctuation to a chapter of heartache and perseverance. Lesia's father, composed but visibly emotional, spoke directly to Harris from the witness stand. For 43 years, we lived in the shadow of what you did. We missed her laughter, her milestones. But today, we find some measure of peace knowing you will never harm another soul. His words were a poignant blend of grief and relief, capturing the essence of a family who had suffered yet stood resilient. Harris, now a shell of the man who had hidden among them for so long, muttered a few indistinct words of regret, but they fell flat against the weight of the evidence and the depth of his betrayal. His once confident demeanor shattered, leaving only the remnants of a life steeped in deception and cruelty. As the courtroom emptied, the overwhelming sense of closure was palpable. Justice had been served, and while the scars of the past would remain, the truth had finally been revealed. Lesia Jackson's story, now complete, stood as a testament to the power of persistence, the advancements in forensic science, and the unwavering hope of a community united by love and loss. The community reaction to the resolution of Lesia Jackson's case was profound and widespread. Interviews with locals captured a mix of emotions: relief, sorrow, and a deep sense of justice finally served. Long-time residents like Mrs. Thompson, a neighbor who had known Lesia and her family, shared her feelings. We never forgot Lesia. For years, every gathering, every conversation had an undertone of her absence. To know that her case is finally closed brings a bittersweet relief. We can start to heal. Social media exploded with reactions as the news spread. Messages of support and solidarity flooded platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Hashtags like #JusticeForLesia and #NeverForgetLesia trended, with users sharing their thoughts, memories, and prayers for the Jackson family. Reading about Lesia's case being solved has brought me to tears. I grew up hearing about her story, and today I feel a sense of closure for her family and our community. One user tweeted, encapsulating the sentiments of many. Public statements from officials echoed this widespread relief and the importance of modern investigative techniques. Police Chief Michael Lawson addressed the community in a press release, saying, "This case has haunted our town for over 4 decades. Thanks to the relentless dedication of our detectives, the advancements in forensic science, and the unwavering support of the community, we have brought justice to Lesia Jackson. This resolution is a testament to our commitment to never give up on the victims who cannot speak for themselves." At a community vigil held in Lesia's honor, hundreds gathered to pay their respects and celebrate the closure of the case. Candles were lit, illuminating tear-streaked faces and a collective sense of unity. Local pastor Reverend James delivered a heartfelt speech. "Tonight, we stand together not just in mourning for the years lost, but in celebration of the justice finally achieved for Lesia. Our faith and determination have been rewarded, and we can begin to heal." The collective response was one of deep empathy and support for the Jackson family. Community members like Mr. Henderson, who had participated in the original search efforts, expressed his thoughts. "Seeing the case solved feels like a weight has been lifted off our shoulders. We've kept Lesia in our hearts all these years, and now we can hold our heads high knowing we've honored her memory by never giving up." Across the town, Local businesses and schools also joined in commemorating Lesia's legacy. Murals were painted, dedications were held, and scholarships were established in her name at the local high school, ensuring that her story of resilience and the community's unwavering spirit would be remembered by future generations. Reflecting on the broader impact of solving Lesia Jackson's case reveals a profound and lasting significance for the family, the community, and the realm of cold cases. For the Jackson family, the resolution brings a mix of relief and sorrow. After 43 years of anguish and unanswered questions, finally knowing what happened to Lesia provides a sense of closure that enables them to begin truly mourning and healing. Her mother and father can now move forward, cherishing their memories of Lesia while no longer being haunted by the uncertainty that once surrounded her disappearance. The community, which had been living under the shadow of this unsolved mystery for decades, experiences a collective catharsis. The case had become a symbol of their lost innocence and the fragility of their perceived safety. By finally closing this chapter, residents can reclaim their sense of security and trust, knowing that the perpetrator has been brought to justice. It also reinforces the power of community solidarity, reminding everyone that together they can overcome even the most daunting challenges. On a broader scale, the resolution of Lesia's case has a significant impact on the handling of cold cases across the nation. It underscores the importance of perseverance and the advancements in forensic science that can breathe new life into long-dormant investigations. Law enforcement agencies are reminded of the vital role that modern technology plays in solving crimes, particularly those involving DNA evidence. The case serves as a pivotal example of how relentless dedication and the continuous evolution of investigative techniques can ultimately lead to breakthroughs, no matter how much time has passed. As a result, many police departments have renewed their focus on reviewing cold cases, applying the latest forensic methods and seeking fresh perspectives. Detective Emma Reynolds' work on this case stands as an inspirational blueprint for other investigators, demonstrating the power of tenacity, empathy, and innovative thinking. This renewed effort may lead to similar resolutions for other families waiting for answers, providing hope and justice for those who have long endured uncertainty and pain. Additionally, Lesia's case has prompted changes in law enforcement practices. There is now a greater emphasis on preserving and re-evaluating old evidence with the latest technology. Departments are more likely to maintain open communication channels with the families of missing persons, ensuring they remain informed and involved. Moreover, the importance of community involvement and media attention in maintaining public interest in unsolved cases has been recognized, leading to more collaborative and transparent approaches in future investigations. In conclusion, the impact of solving Lesia Jackson's case extends far beyond the immediate sense of relief for her family and community. It symbolizes the profound effects of perseverance, the advancements in forensic science, and the power of collective effort. It also heralds a new era in cold case investigations, where the lessons learned and the changes implemented will continue to bring justice and closure to many more families in the years to come. In summary, the journey of Lesia Jackson's case, from her mysterious disappearance 43 years ago to the recent resolution, has been one of despair, relentless pursuit, and ultimate justice. From the tight-knit community of 1980 that was shattered by her absence, to the modern-day breakthroughs in forensic science that finally unveiled the truth. Every step of this journey highlights the enduring hope and determination of her family, friends, and law enforcement. The tireless efforts of Detective Emma Reynolds and the technological advancements that allowed for new DNA evidence to surface were pivotal in bringing Robert Harris to justice. The emotional testimonies, the dramatic court proceedings, and the community's unwavering support painted a vivid picture of a town forever changed by Lesia's story. As we reflect on this incredible journey, we are reminded of the power of perseverance, the importance of forensic advancements, and the strength of a united community. Lesia's legacy will continue to inspire and bring hope to other unresolved cases. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive into one of the oldest cold cases finally solved. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more true crime stories. Together, we can keep the memories of those who are lost alive and continue the quest for justice.